So you're probably quite aware about UFC 281 that's going to be taking place this weekend, but if you're an MMA fan or even if you're a sports fan in general, there are a lot of very interesting fight cards. There's going to be a lot of very good prospects in action. Also, there's a couple of World Cup finals taking place for different sports as well. You've got the cricket, rugby league, and the women's rugby as well, but this is not about that. This is about prospects in action, and this is also about the other cards going on that are not UFC. If you're really into MMA, you want to keep an eye on the regional scene, about the guys that are fighting before they get into the UFC. This could be a pretty good video for you to find out who's up and coming, and a couple of guys that are up and coming right now are fighting on Cage Warriors in Manchester. If you guys don't know, Cage Warriors, they do put on cards in Europe, and they are pretty good for producing some very good European talent. And one of those guys is Christian Leroy Duncan. This guy's 6-0 in his career, and in my opinion, he's going to defeat Marian Dimitrov, and if he does win, he's probably going to end up in the UFC. I mean, this guy, he's very, very impressive. I think he's 1 or 2 wins away from ending up in the UFC. And the same sort of situation for Mateusz Figlak here. I feel like if Mateusz Figlak here gets a win, his brother's in the UFC right now. So if Mateusz Figlak can get a win, I'm pretty sure we could see him maybe stepping up to the UFC at some point, maybe next year. Aaron Johnson's a pretty good prospect as well. He's on a 2-fight win streak, and he's taking on Lucas Capera, who's taking, in my opinion, a pretty big step down in competition. So it'll be interesting to see that fight there. Both guys have fought pretty good competition, and especially Lucas Capera. His losses are to some pretty high-level guys. And if we scroll down quite a bit, there are a few other good prospects, but the guy that I've got my eye on right now is Luke Riley. This guy's only 4-0 as a professional, but he's very impressive to me. He's only 23 years old. He fights at 145 pounds, and he's fighting a guy with a bit more experience than him. 10 fights, 6-4 record. And he's also lost to some pretty good competition. So I'm expecting Luke Riley to come out here and win. You know, he's getting some pretty good finishes. A lot of finishes, actually, in his career. And also in his amateur career as well. He was getting finishes too. Only 23 years old. Potentially a very good prospect for the future. He went 4-0 as an amateur. He's 4-0 as a pro. Looking to build on that record. Keep an eye out for him. And we move on, you've got KSW as well, which is going to be taking place in Poland this time. And someone commented on one of my videos quite a while ago saying that Poland has got no good prospects coming up. I disagree. You've got some really good Polish prospects fighting on this card right now. And one of them, although he's not Polish, but a very good prospect in general, is Salhadin Parnasse. And I'm very surprised the UFC did not sign this guy when they were going to do their French card in Paris. But the UFC needs to sign this guy like quite desperately, in my opinion. He's 16-1. He's already finished that loss that he had to Daniel Torres. I think it might have been to some sort of injury. I actually haven't seen the fight, to be honest. But this guy is a very good prospect. He's fighting in KSW right now. Maybe he's in an exclusive contract with KSW, which is why UFC can't sign him. But in my opinion, he's going to beat Sebastian Rajewski in this one here. He's fighting at 155. It says he fought at 145 in the last time, so maybe he's moving up in weight class to become a double champion. But man, I think Parnasse is a guy that the UFC really can't miss out on, because I know that they missed out on that guy that ONE FC signed from KSW, Roberto Soldic. And we move on as well. You've got Adrian Botaninski taking on Christian Kazubowski. Both of these guys pretty good records. Both of these guys pretty good prospects as well. At 170 pounds, you got the undefeated Adrian Botaninski with a 12-0 record, and he's fighting very good competition as well on that record, so maybe he's a pretty good Polish prospect to keep your eye on. But I was going to look forward down the card because you've got Tom Brees on here, who's actually a former UFC fighter, taking on Paweł Pawlak, and he's a pretty decent fighter himself. Brian Hoy's a interesting fighter, because if you look at this guy, he fights like in these weird custom rules MMA matches, and he's been doing it in the past. Where are they? Are they not listed on his... They might not be listed on his Tapology page, but this guy's been fighting on like these weird like YouTube custom matches, and it's interesting. So Brian Hoy might be a guy to keep your eye on. Very experienced, somewhat young as well, so he's definitely got time to maybe move up to the UFC or some other big promotion. But yeah, another guy that I've got my eye on here, man, is Makoto Takahashi. If you guys are unaware, the UFC desperately needs flyweights because there's only like 30 to 35 flyweights signed to the UFC, and you compare that to the welterweight division where they've got like 70. So Makoto Takahashi 14-1-1 record. He's only 22 years old. They're trying to build into the Japanese market. I feel like this guy could be a really good signing, and he's looking good. And you might think, 14-1-1, but who's he fighting? He's fighting pretty good competition. I mean, 35-30, not the best record in the world, but that's a very experienced opponent. 8-3 win, 13-6 win, 12-3 win, and 16-6 win in Bellator as well, 3 years ago when he was 19 years old. So, yeah, I think, what am I up to? Makoto Takahashi, in my opinion, would be a very good signing for the UFC. And Diego Paiva, although doesn't have the best record in the world, he started off with a pretty bad record and he's built it up, and he's fighting very good competition as well. This was actually not recently, as pretty bad, but he beat a 7-1 opponent. And I think that Takahashi's going to win this one by decision. He does have 12 wins by decision and only 2 wins by finish, which is not the best sign because the UFC wants finishes, but I think this guy at 125 would be a good signing. You move down a little bit. Another guy that I'm looking at here is Hunter Stana, but if Naoki Hirata can win this fight, I think that could be a pretty good look for him as well. And aside from that, that's really all on the card that I'm looking forward to, apart from the main event, really. But Naoki Hirata, this guy's 3-1. He's from Japan, and I believe he's moved to the USA to train. And he's taken on Hunter Stana, who's only 1-0. This guy's also had a 6-0 amateur record, and the guy that he beat was 6-0 as an amateur as well before he decided to go pro, which is very interesting. The fight's taking place at 135 pounds. Naoki Hirata has fought at featherweight in the past. I think it's going to be a good fight. I am picking Stana to win the battle, though, but I think this should be a very interesting fight, and maybe if Hirata can win, he could be another pretty good prospect out of Japan to keep your eye on, although he's pretty inexperienced, so you have to wait a minute for him to build up. But other sports that are on apart from the MMA, I don't know why I'm covering it, but I just thought I might as well because there's so much on. You've actually got the ICC Men's T20 World Cup, which is cricket. There's 20 overs each side, and they play cricket. If you don't know what cricket is, it's somewhat hard to explain, but the World Cup final is going to be on tomorrow for us, and India versus England are actually going to be playing against each other, and only a couple of hours after I post this video, in the semi-finals, which is going to be interesting. And New Zealand, where I'm from, lost to Pakistan last night, which was disappointing, but a good effort from Pakistan. The Rugby League World Cup as well is going to be taking place. The finals are going to be next week, but the semi-finals are going to be taking place this weekend. Australia and New Zealand are in one semi-final. England and Samoa are in the other semi-final. Should be pretty cool. That's another World Cup final that's going on. And Rugby Union, the Women's Rugby Union World Cup is on. And in this weekend, on Saturday night in New Zealand time, New Zealand will be playing against England in the World Cup final. So that should be very interesting. It's going to be a very good game. And yeah, it's going to be interesting just to see what happens there. I think it's going to be interesting. I just repeated myself 5 times. We move on. But yeah, I thought I was going to talk about that because obviously you got UFC 281, Adesanya Pereira, but also you've got so many other sports on this weekend. There's just so much to keep your eye on, and I'm just looking forward to this weekend, man. So much sports to watch and enjoy, and this card is also very, very stacked as well. It's great. I'm really looking forward to it. I thought I just made to make this video, prospects in action. And what's on this weekend? I'm not too sure what to call this series yet. I'm just going to call it what's on this weekend. But I almost want to say, call it prospects in action. And then make videos about the best prospects that are going to be fighting every week. But I'm not too sure. But yeah, I thought I'd better make this video. Just kind of let everyone know about the other MMA events that are taking place this weekend. Aside from UFC 281, which is a massive card. So yeah, I thought I'd better leave it there. There's nothing else. There's no massive boxing fights on to my knowledge. One is going to be taking place next week, so I'll talk about that. Bellator is going to be taking place next week, so I'll be talking about that. But Abasov are making the main card. Cameron Abasov. I recognize this guy from somewhere. Is he someone I covered in the past? I don't know. But Christian Lee, I like Christian Lee. I picked Rayon Ok to beat him. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see, that's interesting. But yeah, the one card is going to be cool. Rod Tang's returning to Muay Thai, which is quite awesome. And apart from that, this should be a very interesting fight. Isi Fikatifu is an Australian guy. And he's alright, 7-0, but he's taken on a 19-3 opponent. That's interesting. If EC wins, man, he could be an Australian prospect to keep your eye on. Then you got Bellator next week as well. Nemkov versus Anderson. I think Anderson got injured or something recently, did he not? Am I correct in saying that? I'm gonna pick Anderson. I think I picked Nemkov to beat Anderson, and then Anderson looked really good in the rematch. So I'm gonna pick Anderson for that reason, I think. But man, there's so many good prospects on this card. Like it's good. I'm really looking forward to it. It's gonna be awesome. But yeah, I'm having a look. Tamura Kazriev versus Daniel Weichel will be very interesting, in my opinion. And yeah, there's a lot of undefeated guys on here that they're trying to build. Killis Motta is taking on an undefeated guy. Yeah, it looks like my Chrome isn't working, so I'll leave the video there. I probably made it too long, but alright, I'll see you later.